All right, time to get started on our last session of the day. To kick us off, we have Nicola Carson from Curtin University. She is presenting Lost in the Stacks, Navigating the Glitchy Road of Patron Record Respect. This presentation highlights the personal impact of when Alma system processes fail, particularly in respect of ceasing students with books on loan. So let's find out from Nicola what happened. Thanks.
All right, I'm just going to share my screen. Can everybody see that?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Is that up?
No, still not up.
Okay, I don't know why not. It should be.
That's all right. Take your time.
Right.
There we go.
That's it. Thank you. And thank you to the ANZREG committee for giving me the chance to actually present my talk today, because it's been a long and nasty road in some respects. Now my presentation won't move forward. That's better. Just like to acknowledge the First Nations of the places that Curtin actually has campuses in. So in Perth, Uluru, and Kakula and Kalgoorlie, and also for our international campuses as well. So welcome to the world of Alma Patron records. And this is a story of confusion, anger, and actually despair at times. It was our very own version of the never-ending story, or maybe it's just Groundhog Day because it keeps going round in circles, of how to find and clean up after a glitch that happened in our Patron loader. It's an ongoing saga for which we're still working towards a resolution, and at the moment we have no conclusion. We are still working on the problem and the resolution. So our problem started back in February when we had a couple of expired students contact us about books that they'd been asked to return months after they'd completed their courses, and in most cases they'd already graduated as well. We were confused about why notifications hadn't gone out when they finished, as changing due dates is done through our Patron loader from the dates that are sent from our student management system. And this did only affect students in our system. But let me digress for a moment or two and take you back to the beginning. In 2019, Curtin radically changed our circulation rules. All of our physical resources in our standard collections are now able to be loaned out until another patron requests the items or the patron actually expires in Alma. And that's done by either having a defined expiry date, our native borrowers, so reciprocals, community members and alumni, or if the host system changes their expiry date, as our student management system does for student one, or the Navitas feeds that comes in from our non-degree people. The change was a godsend during lockdowns in COVID, as the system had been active long enough to update most of the due dates, and others we picked up via analytics, so we didn't have to worry about items being due back. On a huge scale, it was only people who were meant to expire during that period. And a few years before that, we'd implemented a routine to run in our Patron loader that if it had encountered an expiry date that was being changed to either a negative date, so before today, or within the next 7 days, a routine called an API call to check the Patron records to see if there were any active loans on it, and if so, change that due date to one that was 14 days ahead of today. That meant that they were getting an extra 7 days on an ordinary recalled item, but that gave them a chance to finish up and, get books back before they disappeared into the wild blue yonder. Matt Robinson, who's my main IT guru at Curtin in the library, we spent weeks trying to find out why the Patron loader, the ceasing routine wasn't working. There was no error message from the API call. The Patron loader was running fine. So we ended up having to start at the very beginning. We ran some analytics reports to see the students that were actually affected, see if they were in the feed. Of course, most of them weren't, because our feed only lasts for 3 months and this was already 4 months behind. And we ended up checking the Patron loader line by line from beginning to end, all the code, just in case the problem was somewhere else. During that time, we had more ex-students contacting us, so the list of people was growing. And at the same time, our payment system wasn't allowing old students, expired students, to actually sign in, pay their fines either. So that was another problem that we had on top of that. But yet again, one day when we were doing another check, we suddenly saw the Patron loader start its run. We run our Patron loader 10 times a day. And all of a sudden, it found a student that was expired, that was coming up against the auto-renewal rule to say that the items were due back, and it didn't change the due date. So we had a live person that we could actually work with. And when we started testing it, it should be, it was an API call. It had a line of code in there. It requested the status of the loan. Alma sent that call out as an active in sentence case. But when it was returned to Alma rejected it without any error messages because they expected it back all in capitals. It wasn't documented anywhere in the ex libris documentation that this had changed, and we had a serious not happy Jan moment and a serious feeling of relief that we'd actually found what the problem was and we could fix that for ongoing people. Now, that change must have been made round about May or June last year, because we had people running from then up to that November period where we had a lot of people expire at the end of the semester, obviously. But yeah, nothing had been documented. We went back and we checked the documentation, we checked release notes, we checked everything. We couldn't find anything that indicated why it had suddenly started to fail. So we had 2 graduated students. They contacted, as I said, they contacted the library. Their books hadn't been recalled. And when the book release got to the auto renewal process, which for us is 18 months, that's when it started to pick it up. As I said, the API rule changed and we saw it happening. It was a moment of relief, as I said. So out of what we have, and we're not convinced that we've picked up everybody, because analytics can be, excuse me, very glitchy on what it decides is active or not active, or a loan is a loan. But we have 121 students that were affected by this change, and between them they had 422 books out on loan. So the question was raised by management: of those 422 books, are there any that can actually be withdrawn, and therefore we don't have to worry the patron? We had looked at that. We have looked at that. We have a spreadsheet. We're still checking on how many can be withdrawn, but it's not really going to be that easy to do it because most of them have other books on loan as well. So, and yeah, it was it still makes my head go round in circles. We did fix it when we actually found the problem. We were able to go back and find all students that had been caught in the last month, 6 weeks, because they're still active. They were still active in our Patron loader. And during that time, because they've expired from the library, our student life cycle across the university means that their emails are cut off after 45 days. So we were able to fix those ones, and there was about 10 of those. But we still have the other 121 that we're looking at. So, as I said, we've done the collections team had worked on the report for us on what status all the books have. Can we change them? Can we get new ones? Can we do anything else? That took a while for them to get to us because unfortunately their team was understaffed at the time, so the time frame's been drawing out and out. And yet again, it doesn't look like there's an extensive number that can actually be withdrawn. But as I said, because the patrons have other items out on loan, they're still needing to be contacted. So what's next? We need to obtain contact details for the students. Because their student emails are cut off after 45 days, all of these people are well out of that range of being able to access their emails. We only load their Curtin provided emails into Alma in respect of privacy and not having too much data that is available elsewhere. So one thing that we are considering doing or having to do is actually go into our student one and see if we can actually see how many people have got active emails in there. Then we have the problem of, do we add them to Alma as a CC email, which we generally only use for our incarcerated students so that their education officers can see their loans and everything? Or where else can we get that information from? Or where else can we put that information? And then how do we actually send them an email? We can't use the ceasing student routine to do that because that will actually affect anybody else who's got loans that will be coming up for return. And we don't want to change that letter to actually our huge apology to go out to students that this issue hasn't affected. I know that we can do a manual letter with the update and notify user job, but yet again, is that going to, first of all, we need to see if we can get the emails first. And yet again, we keep thinking of very, very huge amounts of various scenarios on how we can do this. Do we have to do it via our CRM system, the student help system? In which case we would need to do it manually because we need to include the books that are in dispute with them, that are due for return in that email. So we can't just send them a bulk email, which the system can do, without actually giving them the individual information that we need. We've also had to think about the due dates. Normally our ceasing students process gives them 7 days, which is our standard recall period. But we don't think that that's long enough because these people have been out of the university system for at least 7, 8 months now. And they may no longer be in the country. They may no longer be in Perth. So what else do we do with them? So we've decided we haven't definitely decided, but our thought was we're going to give them 3 weeks to be in touch with us, either return the books or be in touch with us so we can at least talk about their situation. And that way the system will then process them into our lost process, which is 14 days overdue. So they'll have, in effect, 5 weeks to get our books back or be in contact with us and let us know what they want to do, what we should do. And yet again, it's a conversation that's going to be individual to each person because they have moved on. We're also thinking about after the fact that all of this has happened. We think we might need an analytics report that we can run to keep an eye on things before I'm going to say it gets out of hand. And hopefully, if that highlights what we're thinking it might do, we may be able to be on top of the problem before it gets into the situation that we are now with all of these students out there and our books not in their home. We're also thinking about making sure the documentation is updated. I know that the API call has had a service call put in for it about the fact that it's not documented anywhere and how it affected us. And it also highlights for us the fact that we've been on Alma for literally just over 10 years. And the fact that Ex Libris still don't think that ceasing students and book loans are important enough for this process to actually be within Alma. So yet again, we put it forward. You know, we talk to them every so often about it. I know it comes up in NERS, it comes up in the ideas exchange. And we never seem to get anywhere with it. They just don't understand how much work it's created for us in this particular situation. But it's been a frustrating journey. It's not over yet. We do feel as if we can see the summit of Mount Everest. And to be honest, we can't wait to be on that over the top and downward slope. And thank you for listening. It's been nice to get it off my chest.
Hello again.
Hi.
So for questions, we sort of only have, I think, one question. I think my Zoom is going to kick me out. Hang on a second.
Oh, yeah, I think Patricia's disappeared. So we have a couple of comments in the chat. Rashmi says, thanks for your presentation, Nicola. I had no idea you could use the API to update due dates for expired users. We've been wanting this functionality for ages, so great to hear that there is a potential solution we can investigate. We keep on voting for this to be out of the box in Alma via NERS and Ideas Exchange as well.
Yeah, and we did this process of putting it into our Patron loader using that API call back in 2016. So it's been around for a long time. So to have it fail like it just did was unbelievable, really.
Renee says, I feel for you, Nicola. This is a nightmare to manage. Dave, the chair of Igloo, says maybe this should be escalated to the Alma working group, which is a good idea.
That would be a fantastic idea.
Yeah, Catherine says, agreed. This sounds like an issue that needs to be flagged with the working group as it's a risk for all institutions. Dave has asked, can someone do a write-up for me and he will escalate it to the Alma working group? So somebody
that
put your
sounds
hand
like
up.
me.
I'm going to go with
I could
Nicola.
probably do that because I'm the one that's been working on the problem.
Sounds like a good plan. All right.
Not a problem. I'm glad other people are worried about it as well because patrons always get the rough end of the stick when something goes wrong, and we hate apologising, but you have to do it because this is our fault. This is not them not reading their emails or anything else.
Yeah.
This is an Alma problem that just doesn't work if it doesn't work.